Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 5, activating Starseeds, walk-ins, and the new human of the Golden Age. I'm your host, Washela Sananda, and today I get to introduce you to Anastasia Frank. Welcome, Anastasia.
Thank you so much, Washela. I'm excited for this.
So happy to have you here, and we're going to have some fun in our conversation today for sure. So before we jump in, I would love to invite everyone to join us in a short alignment process so we can really get clear and focused and ready for this conversation today. So please join me by closing your eyes and deepening your breath deep into the body. And as you're breathing, bring your awareness into your heart center and make contact with the light in your heart. Now feel this light in your heart glowing and growing and expanding out around your chest. Feel the warmth of that light spreading out around your body. And now bring that line of energy from your heart up through the top of your head, all the way up into the heart center of central sun. And feel that heart light of central sun coming down through the ethers into the top of your head, spreading into every energy center and every cell of your body, all the way to the base of your spine, and continuing down into the heart center of Mother Earth. And making contact with the heart of Mother Gaia, bring that energy up into the base of your spine, up the spine into every energy center and spreading out to every cell of your body. And now take a deep breath and join those energies from above, below, and within, creating a holy trinity of light, and allow that light to bring you more focus, more awareness, more presence, and an openness to receive whatever is for your highest good in this conversation today. Thank you for joining me. Feel free to open your eyes. And now I'm going to share about Anastasia. Anastasia works with highly driven women to call in and keep their most aligned soulmate partnership. She believes all women can create healthy, connected love, and she has supported thousands of women to create connected, committed partnerships, as well as abundant, purpose-driven work that lights their souls on fire. Through her Abundant Love Mastery methodology, she teaches women how to create unprecedented levels of self-love and pleasure so they can embody their most magnetic selves and organically attract the love and abundance they desire. I love that. Thank you for being here, Anastasia. And I'd love to jump in just because this is the first time you've been on the Alchemy of Ascension. And yeah, and I'd like to kind of start with your, a little bit of how did you get involved in this work? What was your origin story of what you do now?
Absolutely. So I guess the short version is healthy love was a mystery to me. You know, I'm the child of some pretty gnarly family dynamics, as so many of us are. And like essentially my dad was very, very physically violent and verbally abusive, to the point that my mom needed to kidnap me when I was 8 into hiding into Mexico. And so a lot of stories were formed in that container about my worthiness for love, my worthiness to be seen or received for who I am, not what I do. I was very trained by the container of his narcissism in how to please a man, but not know who I was independently. So I had all the successes of, like, I was like the queen of performing. You know, I got into Princeton on a full scholarship. Like, we had no money, my mom and I, after that got resolved. But I had no idea who I was. Like, I was deeply lost. When people would ask me what I felt, I could identify hunger and no other feelings, because it had never been permitted for me to go inside, and no one had asked, what do you feel? So I was walking around, I called it, to one early coach, a crisis of disconnection, because I had no connection with my inner self. And I, at the time, was a diehard atheist, because I was like, if there is a God, he hates me and wants me to suffer, given what has happened in my life and how hard love was with the stories I was carrying, that I'm bad, my value comes from what I do for others, my feelings and needs don't matter. So I was bringing that consciousness, as we all do, into every workplace and relationship, and it was excruciatingly painful. So I took about 12 years where I was like on this journey, which I thought was about finding love, and it was, but it was really about finding myself, creating connection with my feelings, my authenticity, like who am I, moment by moment, and also creating a connection with spirit, which was deeply, deeply important. And so as I made significant progress and saw what that did for my well-being, I was like, this is actually a common journey of a lot of really driven women who are high performers. They get there by being so outwardly focused that there's no internal intimacy here. And I was like, wow, I have an obligation to share what I've found. Not an obligation, like I desired to. So I left finance to become a filmmaker. That wasn't close. And then I left that to start direct healing work, because it felt like God had given me these experiences to serve other people in service of, yeah, self-love and partnership. Does that answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you and I have gotten to know each other over the last, what's it been, like 6 months? Seems longer.
I know.
We've been able to spend some significant time together, but even in the first lunch that we had together, I really got a sense of this deep spiritual connection in you, and partnered with this really questioning, curious mind that's, you're willing to have the difficult conversations. You're willing to, sort of, even in, my experience of seeing you with myself and other people, friendship wise, to put the relationship on the line, to go into some of those deeper conversations. Do you want honest feedback, is something you'd say, or and I love that about you. I crave that in relationships. And so, for me, it's like, oh wow, someone that doesn't wear the mask of, let's pretend everything's great, and then when something's not great, bye, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I see happening in a lot of relationships. And so what the main thing that I really invited you to the show to talk about is what I presence as ascended love.
Mhm.
And in our correspondence, I really got that ascended love and healthy love, which your Anastasia, for those who don't know, has the Healthy Love show. That's the foundation of her work. And it's the same thing.
Yes.
Healthy love and
Yes.
ascended love are the same thing.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to share, some of your maybe foundational findings and awarenesses of what is healthy or ascended love.
Yeah, it's such a good question. So I'm going to speak from my heart, and then I did bring a book that I think speaks into this really powerfully, in case it serves your audience, to have some bullet points. But globally, I would say healthy love really boils down to two people are coming together in a space of well, shared agreements to begin with. So you get to define what those are. But the healthy love, as like broadly speaking, you have two people who are both responsible for themselves, what does that look like? This is a very important question, because this is like in all my coaching, when people have criteria and they don't define what that looks like, this is a recipe for just, it's like covertly hiding from love. If you can't define what the thing is that you're saying you want in terms of what that looks like, be very suspicious of whether it's an attainable thing you're going for. So what that looks like is, I am responsible for my feelings, you are responsible for yours. And so we're both coming together from that place where we're looking to be filled up, talk about ascended love, from whatever fills us up. For me, that's God, my relationship with the divine. For my beloved, that might be his sense of humanism and what is good in people, whatever that is. But we come together and we're sharing love from that place. So that's a huge piece. You're not responsible for my unhappiness, and I'm not responsible for yours. So that's like a baseline. The other piece is, we're aware we're in a growth-oriented partnership, which looks like we both know you, and this is me defining it, it could be distinct for your viewers. My definition of growth-oriented is, we both know we're souls here that have a purpose that we're discovering as we go. And so we both are seeking to bolster that path for ourselves and the other person. That might mean at some point we do part. But the primary orientation is, I'm here to find my soul purpose, you are too. And all of my ways of relating to you are honoring what that is. So that's a huge piece. And it's pretty radical. It's radical because it's the opposite of a safety-oriented partnership, where it's like we're in a commitment until we're not checking in about, is this still serving each soul's alignment? There, I think you'd call it your ascended self, or whatever that is in your space. So those are like the two foundations of the whole thing. And from there, you get to define, like, what are the other qualities that make something healthy? Because that is a very personal question. I do want to share some of these from the book that kind of opened my mind to this, because I think it would support. So this is from Gay and Katie Hendricks, Conscious Loving. And I'll just speak into this. I think this is worth going into, because this breaks down, what does success look like? What is ascended love? What is healthy love? And I like that, because it cuts underneath someone who's like, I'm looking for a spiritual partner. What does that mean? These commitments to me are a spiritual love, because they're not easy. They're not a given. They require conscious commitment. So the first one is, I commit myself to being close and to clearing up anything in the way of my ability to do so. So like, no more hiding whatever is going on with you through process or substance addictions, including work. You're interested in being open and available. It's a huge deal. That could be unpacked for like another 60 minutes.
Okay.
And then I commit to my own complete development as an individual, which is a huge deal also. And I think that's really relevant for your viewers, because no one's here necessarily to just devote themselves to the other person. Like, that could be their path. And if that is, that's perfect. But there's a consciousness that we're both doing that. Number 3, I commit to revealing myself fully in my relationships, not to concealing myself. Like, being willing to be real about what is actually happening for you. This is another huge one that very few people practice in day-to-day. There's a lot of hiding that feels easier, but it robs healthy love and intimacy. And you can tell me more about Ascension in your world, but that's a huge piece. And then there's just a couple more. I commit myself to the full empowerment of people around me. So I'm standing for your success and you're standing for mine. And I know you and I both have huge missions here, as do your viewers. So that's a big one. And all of these have implications while we're dating of what we're looking for as we get to know someone. So like the baseline right for me right now is like, can you handle like my commitment to serving women across the globe? And I'm looking for evidence of that while assuming that it exists, which is a key point we can touch on. I commit to acting from the awareness I'm 100% the source of my reality. So if there's a lack of kindness or love here, what am I being? How am I withholding love and kindness in the field? And how can I shift into that which I see lacking? So again, putting it back on yourself. And then finally, I commit to having a good time in my close relationships, which is important for us cerebral, spiritual, brainy types, because it's like, and we get to have fun along the way. So I think I share that honestly, because when I was on this quest, like what is healthy love? I had no models. When I looked at relationships around me, my cousins in England had certain things that I liked, but no other relationship that I saw came close. So this book literally became the basis of my imagination of what I was creating. And all of your viewers get to have that they are building ascended love, healthy love, unique to them. And so I invite them to pull in things that work from certain people, but to claim like your ascended healthy love is going to be yours. And this became the baseline from which I started making something up. And that's available to everyone. So anyway, I hope that serves.
Yeah. I feel like I should start this whole thing with go get a pen and paper and start taking notes, because this is a masterclass. Just those elements that you shared alone, foundational stuff for not only for relationships with others, but for ourselves. What am I willing to look at within myself? And I think, would you agree that these things actually need to be done with yourself before you can really enter into a relationship and do them?
100%, which is like, I think you know this, but maybe you don't. Like the reason I created like Abundant Love Mastery was I was like, why? Like so much is on like starting on the external, and people are assuming like, oh, there's some healthy love, ascended love just out there waiting for me, without really looking at how available are you truly for connected, growth-oriented, self-responsible, high vibration love. And I believe you cannot create healthy love with a partner until you are in robust, intimate, healthy love with yourself, which sounds trite. What does that look like? Like I have my people, I think I shared this with you because I discovered this like 7 years ago. They're writing to themselves every day, and throughout the day, they're having this dialogue with what are they feeling? How are they causing that? What is true about the idea, I'm not good enough, that's why that person looked at me strange or said that. They're connecting with their guidance, with God, with spirit, to correct the wounded thinking of the ego, shifting centers so that they can then take action or not from that aligned self. So the ground zero for healthy love is becoming the beloved you're seeking, who's contained, aware, present, open to your own experience. I'll pause. There's more.
Yes. Yeah. And what you're saying is akin to twin flame integration, which we talked a little bit about before we started. In my work, Embodied Ascension, there's this, this concept, well, in spirituality in general, the concept of twin flame. And I think we should just presence this, because a lot of people are all about the twin flame, right? And people go looking for that twin flame in another person.
Right.
But the way that it really must be done, in order to, even if you find your twin flame, if you haven't done that inner work, if you haven't integrated all of these things that you just talked about first, that's going to be a tumultuous relationship because you're working out your personal stuff in the context of this relationship.
Yes. Yes.
So, it's similar, what you're sharing is for any spiritual person. And we crave love, right? We all crave love. It's the name of my book, The Love You Crave, right?
Right.
It's that finding it within yourself and being willing to be honest with yourself it's just the first, that's where you have to start in
Yes.
order to be able to experience it with another. And it can be
Yes.
terrifying.
Yeah. What's coming up for me as you're sharing that is like, this is why I don't love labels. Like, I'm looking for a spiritual person. What does that mean? Like, what does that actually mean? Because in my experience, in my life, and in supporting women, like, what we're really talking about when we say something like that, unless we have like a really niche thing where like, I'm looking for a spiritual partner to build an empire, like a spiritual business with, then that's what it is. You're looking for a business associate to co-create content with. Let's call it that. But everyone else is really talking about, for the most part, I'm looking for someone kind, compassionate, who lets me be me, who cherishes my gifts and my journey. And so often that comes in packages that are surprising. And if we're approaching the journey towards shared love, looking for that spiritual person, we will often miss the humans right in front of us. This is like really coming through so clearly, who have, for whatever reason, a deep well of love in them and are bringing to the table their own huge heart and their presence and their compassion. And they may have no spiritual practice whatsoever, but if you're paying attention, they are your home run. So I just wanted to name that as it was happening for me in what you shared.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that you're sort of unpacking the concept of what is spiritual, even, and what does it mean to have, or to find, or look for, when you find a spiritual partner, what does that actually mean?
Yes.
And I can say, for myself, I got to be with my twin flame in in another body for a period of time, who was a walk-in. So it was a short amount of time, 3 years, but that didn't mean that the relationship was easy.
Right.
There was a lot of growth happening, and there was still food to cook and diapers to change when we had our daughter, and like the basic things of life to do, and bills to be paid. And so it wasn't like, oh, I found my spiritual partner now, none of that other stuff's important. That stuff has equal importance no matter who the partner is that you're with. So it's
Yeah.
also, I think there's this concept of spiritual, or this like perfect twin flame partner that is sort of missing, like, but is this someone that I can cook dinner with, or enjoy coffee in the morning with when my hair's a mess, and all of those pieces, right?
Yeah. It's so interesting. As you're speaking, I'm becoming aware that like a sort of another like covert hidden agenda is like, it's popping into my awareness while you're talking, which is, I don't know why this year I've had a lot of women come to me that are like, I want like a spiritual partner. And what that's meaning for them really is, unconsciously at the beginning, they're looking to get like proximity to spirit through the other person. They're looking, as opposed to owning, like, okay, what are you really going for? Like, what is that really? And in a way, that's all of our journeys to love. We look for in our partner what we want to claim within ourselves. So this isn't just limited to spirituality, but But so often what I watch happen in people who have a partnership and are opening to this is it's like letting go of the need to like change that person actually becomes their spiritual growth. So anyway, I just wanted to name that, like, it's a complex, multidimensional conversation. But if you're looking to get spirituality from your person, what is that really about? And what are you giving power away inside of yourself? Because I would argue there is no apex of spirituality you cannot access as a solo endeavor. And I think you embody this so much. So then, anyway, I'll pause there. There's many more thoughts.
Yeah. I really want to comment on that because I am the person that attracts that person that wants that.
Yes.
And I personally keep, because I'm dating, I'm 50 years old, I'm on dating apps, and it's an interest, I'm divorced, all these things, and I'm a single mom half the time. So all of that stuff is going on. And I'll find, these men will be attracted to me that are looking for that deep interconnection. They don't know where it is in themselves, and they think that I'm going to provide that for them. And just like you said, if they don't have it within themselves or don't know how to settle down enough to go inward and access that, I can't be somebody's source of spirituality. I can show you how to find it in yourself, but I can't be your source of spirituality. And nobody can, right? I love that you said that. And then also what that brings up too is, for me, when I'm looking for a spiritual partner, I am looking for, that's my concept, a spiritual partner. It's everybody's spiritual pretty much to some degree, right? Everyone's got it, some element of spirituality. So without labels, what you presenced in the beginning, what I'm looking for is someone to grow with. Someone that can support my growth, someone that I can support their growth, someone that we can hold that container of expansion together individually and as a couple. That's what it is. And I love that you presenced that so beautifully. How to attract that person, I think, would be the next level of the conversation. And just, I'm going to hand this over to you in a second, but what I want to mention about that is, at least at my age, and I know a lot of people are my age that are or 40s, 50s on up, even 30s, a lot of people have baggage and traumas. They've been divorced, they've been hurt, they've been heartbroken, and they have pain. And so what I found is often actually I'll have a few dates with someone, and the first little glitch of like, oh wait, maybe you're not the perfect spiritual, everything's going to be ideal with you person, and their pain gets bumped up against, and then they run away, right? That bubble pops and they're out the door so fast. So dating after trauma or after all of that, that's, how to navigate that. And I know this is part of what you do.
Yeah, such a gorgeous question. So there's two things that are coming through for me in response to what you just asked. So the first is, we get to, if we're committed, like we're really committed, like, and I'm just gonna say this and then move on. The journey to healthy love and ascended love, to me, is the spiritual path of being human. Because in order to create it, you're gonna need to contend with your shit. And you're gonna need to find a way to love people in theirs. So that is the spiritual journey. And so I'll just name that. So then the next piece is, if you're committed to that, you want to rise to your highest and learn how to love yourself and another being in the fullest form possible. It's very important that you begin not in a perfectionist, neurotic way, but in a generative way to create a vision, a feeling in your imagination that is a practice of what you're calling forward. So like, what's it gonna feel like in the presence of this beloved? And this has been coming up over and over this year for myself and the women I'm supporting. If you can't feel what would be attractive to you right now, there's something that you get to unpack and release that's in the way. So that's the invitation for your viewers. If you're in the process of dating after trauma or dating period, you get to, it's your responsibility to form a felt sense of, this is what it's going to be like to sit across from someone who's wise and grounded and loving, who's pouring love into me. And this is what it's going to feel like in my body to receive that. And so there's two parts to that. When you're imagining this relationship, which is the foundation of creation, if you haven't imagined it, which doesn't mean it's not going to be refined, it will be refined as you have experience, you won't be available to it. It's your job to cook up a felt clear vision of what is so juicy that you are willing to get over yourself, willing to grow skills that you don't possess to receive this. So number one is you get to imagine what this is going to start to feel like. And number two, what I find most powerful that I don't hear people talk about is while you're envisioning, you're working your edge. You're leaning into your shit so that you, sorry if I'm swearing, I didn't ask permission. My inner Brooklyn comes out.
Not that bad.
Okay, I'm actually being very clean today. But yes, so you're working your edge. What does that look like? Before I was ready to be available for my first husband, who was not aligned in certain very key ways, but was aligned to everything I was conscious of, for 3 years, I got to practice imagining a beautiful, aligned, soulful, creative man loving me, pouring his love into my heart without words, just for inside the consciousness, my value comes from what I am, not what I do. That was profoundly uncomfortable. You'll know you're working your edge when it makes you want to cry. So each morning when I sat down in meditation, allowing this vision to wash over me, I would weep because this experience I was leaning into of a man pouring love into me without me dancing or giving him anything was outside my identity. And what that practice made possible was then when I did meet Eric, I was in the 3D realm, I think you might call it. And he said, "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever met." The parts of me that would want to run, and they were still there, they still are there, could stand still, ground into the truth. Yes, he's right. My value comes from what I am, but a precious, zesty child of God, not from what I do. And I can say authentically, "Thank you." And I was like, "God, you're so sexy," because I was available to receive it, having gone there in my imagined practice. So those are the two parts that are powerful for dating after trauma. What's it gonna feel like? What's it gonna feel like with your beloved? And who are you gonna be with all your shit, still making yourself available truly to be intimate? I'll pause. That's, yeah.
So good. And that, you presenced in the beginning how you had lost the ability to feel anything or identify with your feelings. This speaks directly into embodiment.
Yes.
Or, spiritual people, all people, that are sensitive, empathic. We like to go out of body. We like to go deep in our meditations and go play in the cosmos and the stars. And we don't have to feel the physical stuff. We don't have to feel the traumas when we do that. And the embodiment piece, coming back in, getting present to what does it feel like? Ooh, there's stuff in here that doesn't feel good. That's the part that has us get real and present to our bodies. And if we don't do that in the shadow work, the clearing work, it's so important in all ascension work. If we don't do that, if we're not willing to do that, like you said, how could we possibly know what it feels like, or what we want? What does it feel like? How do we know if we're not embodied and willing to do that work? So absolutely beautiful that you shared that. Like, this is
Yeah.
so good.
And like, if you cannot, this is like coming at it's so beautiful, the timing of life. Like, I had this conversation yesterday with a very, very dear client of mine, and you can feel it like in yourself and when your friends are talking to you about the love that they're calling in. Like, just, there's two thoughts here. The first is, can you articulate and feel what would be enough for you to love? Like, is there a avatar of a being of feelings and gifts that would be enough for you to love? And if the answer is no, and you'll know this if you are either going on a million dates and something's always missing in everyone, or you'll know this because you're not dating anyone, because you're, swiping or not swiping, and there's just shit in the way, there's stuff in the way. You have not done this critical piece of really diving into what would be enough. What's the baseline of qualities and feelings that I'm really calling in, upon which all the rest can be built? So that's the first thing. And you'll notice as you listen to your friends talking about what they're not seeing, how often it's a superficial thing, because you'll not feel moved in your heart. When someone's dating consciously, looking for this, felt experience that they're calling in, you'll be moved. You'll be like, oh, damn, like, yeah, you got close and that's so disappointing. Versus like a woman I was flirting yesterday was talking about, this guy is open to children, but doesn't definitely want them. And it was so head up that I was like, I'm like, honey, I'm curious, when's the last time you felt attracted to anyone? And she like got really present with how much trauma there still is for her about, if she really shines her feminine light, she's scared of how much attention is going to come. And that is her work. So if you don't find yourself attracted to anyone, the opportunity is, okay, what is not healed? What is the story about what would happen if I allowed that? And that becomes the path. I hope that makes some sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the head up. We get analytical about love and about like, what's it going to take? And also, I think another aspect of that is, are you only attracted to the people that are maybe not as attracted to you, or not willing to go deep, or like that missing link? Are you attracted to the missing link because it gives you sort of this buffer, this space?
Yes. Like, let's be real. Like, and I like, again, this timing is so insane. Like last week I did my own summit, and this was like the flavor of the summit was all about, most of us are somewhere on the spectrum of anxious or avoidant in how we relate to other people.
Say that again. Anxious or avoiding?
Anxious or avoidant. Our attachment style is anxious or avoidant, or like me, you might swing between them depending on what's happening. All of these orientations, besides a secure, which makes perfect sense, because most of us didn't have a beautifully calibrated, aligned parent or caregiver to witness us and be present and also give space. So most of us are bumping around inside our anxious or avoidant patterns, which are all about the same thing. It's an unwillingness, both of them. Even the anxious thinks they want intimacy. They are terrified of it. They are really addicted to the chase. They're addicted to the chase of an unavailable energy, who then, when they become available, they're going to run away themselves. So this has been coming up all week long. So, and what is the solution? The solution looks like we get to form for the first time in ourselves, start to cook true emotional intimacy. And what does that mean? How willing are you to be with the full spectrum of your feelings, however often that comes up? Because if you're not willing to be present with that, your authentic feelings, your imperfect shadow stuff and the light, how could you possibly bring in someone who can be with you there? So one of the things that was super instrumental for me, and I still have my growth to do, but this thing that pivoted, I started practicing like sacred Sabbath, because I realized I was missing a feeling of home inside myself, which is exactly what we're talking about. I was chasing friends, chasing busyness to find home outside. And what that looked like was a total absence of just being still, not in my head spiritually, but present with what is here and enjoying that container. So I started this in Brooklyn, and every Saturday, no electronics, no phone, no work, nothing. Nature, you could bring a carafe of wine if you like that, or New York Times, bike to Coney Island, whatever that is. But during that sacred time of Sabbath, you are getting intimate with you. You're getting curious about who are you when you're not doing. Who is Anastasia, the Washela, who is simply being? And you're allowing yourself to feel your sadness. It's going to bring up all your shit. When there's no distractions, you will be revealed to yourself. And how willing are you to love the beautifully complicated, messy human that you are? Because from that ground place, that becomes your foundation into which you can welcome an intimate partner, because you're not afraid anymore. So this past week, I think I assigned 3 of my clients, because it came up organically, this homework to begin a practice of a sacred Sabbath, where their focus is building true emotional intimacy with themselves so that someone can come in and join them there. Anyway, that came through. So
yeah, beautiful. So important to have that personal time and go deep and be willing to go deep and look at what's there and what you're feeling. And I want to comment on when you said addicted to the chase. That is something that I see in the world of spirituality all the time. And it shows up as, of course, it shows up in people and relationships and dating, but it's also showing up in, I'll have interviews with clients, they're interested in my program, right? And they'll say, well, you know, I have 7 other programs that I'm signed up for that or fill in the blank on how many that I haven't completed. And I'm like, addicted to the they're chasing spirituality. And this, so in my program, there's toward the beginning, we get into shadow work. You know, that's one of the first things, that going deep within, like you just said, and looking at that stuff, right? And that's when people want to jump out, because suddenly it's like, oh, but I don't like how this feels. I want to go find a program that feels better. I just want the la 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 happy woo woo stuff, and I don't want to feel yucky, you know. And that's the problem. It's, you know, whether it's spirituality or relationships, that is the key ingredient, that willingness to be present with those heavy feelings, that density, so that we can bring lightness to it when we shine the light on it and look at it and really are willing to observe it and understand it, right?
yes. And like what's like loudly coming through is just to like normalize for anyone who's watching and freaking out, like this requires some skills. It's not like you wake up one day and you're like, oh yeah, I'm suddenly just like, I'm just like totally cool, like bring on my shadow. Like it's very important to give yourself some form of a tool set, whether it's like what you're teaching or, you know, my lineage, I come from, you know, Dr. Margaret Paul, inner bonding, inner child work. It's a real thing. Like, how do you simply witness that you're feeling. I had this morning. I was feeling crunchy and I opened to what was underneath it. There's deep helplessness over a partner that I shared with you. I find incredibly beautiful. Like his soul is sublime. And there's something that got revealed about him that is not a home run. And the temptation for all of us is to go into wounded story. Like there are no perfectly aligned men. There are no, and all that that's doing is attempting to avoid the underlying core feeling, which is like, God, we are helpless over who other people are. And if we're opening to love, we need to embrace the feeling, be willing to feel our helplessness over who people are and what they choose, and to let that be okay. But we cannot skip over that, or we're going to be lost. So finding a way to use and your viewers have this amazing connection with spirit. That's such an advantage to be able to tap into that, but really dive into the feeling, like crying through the core pain of helplessness, not in a victim energy, but in order to allow it with spirit present. This is what I've learned and I practice. And then when that's been felt, to be willing to replace the sadness, the heaviness of that feeling with like peace and love until it needs to be felt again. So I just wanted to name that it's not, I didn't know how to be with myself until I was shown a practice that works. So I just wanted to name that in case anyone was freaking out.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And, there's a reason why when people go into, we'll say, plant medicine ceremonies or deep inner work or shadow work, there's a reason why you have a shaman present or why you have an Anastasia present, because somebody gets to be there to hold you, to catch you, to hold space for witnessing that depth, and that, and this can be a partner certainly, but it doesn't need to be a partner.
Right.
I think it's so important when we go deep. I mean, of course we can do this on our own.
Yes.
Absolutely. You can. And
once you know what to do,
yeah, exactly. So the tools, like you said, when someone has the tools, hey, you've got to have some support. You're not going to just say like, oh yeah, I'm going to go do my shadow work now, lock the door. I mean, you can do that, but it's helpful to have support and tools and foundational things in place so that you know what to do when you get there, right? And how to work through it. And you and I both are avid, lovers of transformational courses, and and so many of us are. But it's not just the courses; it's taking that material and going deep. I just said to someone, a new client the other day, you've been going wide. You've got tons of knowledge, but you're not going deep, and that's the same thing as that chasing. It's like, let's take one thing and go deep with it, and that's going to change everything. And also, this is true in whether you're already in a marriage, a committed relationship, or single and dating or not dating, right? It's across the board.
Yeah, something that came up while I was researching for the last series was I read that someone had an article on how her relationship to her goals was an anxious attachment style. And ever since I read that, I've been like really getting honest with myself about, I'm like, oh my God, this literally does show up everywhere. And like, what is the energy of that? It's like, it's basically like a lack consciousness. Like, it's the absence of I can trust a person, I can trust the universe, I can trust the unfolding of things in right timing. It's like, oh my God, I have to force it to happen. I have to make the goal occur. I have to make the guy love me, the woman love me. I'm like, wow. So there's like an invitation to have secure relationship with even our creations, which I think is what you're speaking into. And I'm like, that is so juicy to me right now. Like, what does that look and feel like? To be like really committed and surrendered.
So good. Yeah. And I see it, in work as well. You and I might be similar in that, like, I'm considered a burster, but I will burst through a project and I'll work around this Alchemy of Ascension Summit is an example of that for, it's 3 months, but for one good month, it's out so many hours. But the way I sustain myself through that, I let a lot of things go during that time, right? Because there's a certain amount of hours in a day and there's a certain amount of things that have to get done. But I remind myself constantly, this is temporary. This is temporary. And at the end of this, the balance will be restored, right? So, I mean, what would you consider that? Is that an unhealthy or healthy relationship? Is it self-destructive? I mean, was there a
I love the question because it speaks into a bigger thing, which is like, again, like it's back to what does healthy even mean? Healthy to me means like it works for you in the best way. So that so from what I'm hearing, what you're describing, it sounds like it's pretty close to the best way of working for you at this time. And then the invitation, that I'm inside the inquiry of always is, how could I relate to my energetic patterns, if we're talking about work, or whatever, in a even more loving way. So like, yes, I am a burster as well. And so it's like, last week's summit, I straight up pulled a practically all-nighter, which I have not done in years. And I was like, that can't happen again. That's not, and I was excited. I did it because I love researching people. And I got clear, there's like 3 roles I get to hire into. Like I cannot continue to because I don't like that. I don't like that feeling of so much. So, the question is just, do I like how this feels? Is this sustainable? Would I do it again? And if not, what are some small or large hacks that you could bring in to simplify? Obsessed with simplifying right now. Or who could you hire? There's I have right now assistants in like 4 countries through my main team. And it's like magical. I put in I'm like, can someone build this? And it's like Mohammed, Nadia, Singapore. It's like we live in a world now where we can have massive impact with help. So,
yes.
So the answer to your question is does this feel like the highest, best use of your time and energy? And if not, what else could you add or let go of?
So good. Yes. Yes. And I mean, I didn't expect to take this into business, but there are 2 things that I'll be really ugly honest about here. Is number 1, control. I want to be in control of how things are done. And if I give that to my assistant, then maybe it won't be the way I want it to be, right? There's that. That's the controller thing, which I'm 100% aware of and working with all the time. And then the second thing is lack consciousness. If I hire all the people to do all these tasks that I can do perfectly well myself, then what does that look like? And that is absolutely coming from a lack consciousness. And I'm constantly checking myself on that. Because I go into this weighing, is it worth it to do it myself? Is it worth it to
Totally.
And I notice how often I do it much less now than I used to. And I have 2 assistants now. I used to have 1. And and it's it's step by step. I'm like, okay, yes, it's worth it. It's worth it to have a team. It's worth it. And I trust. This is for more. This is bigger than me. This is not about me. And when it's bigger than you and you're not doing it for selfish reasons, the universe will absolutely have your back. And I get to learn that more and more every day.
I'll just say this now because it's worth just naming, I went through breast cancer at 34, and the biggest thing that came out of that, I full on coached through that whole year of chemo. I actually led my group program through the chemo chair, and my clients didn't know it was going on because I just didn't feel like they needed to. I didn't. But the point of all of that was, I realized early on, I was like, I'm committed to serving, and I'm committed to being loving to myself. And I don't know where I got this idea, but I think I might have read it or something, that some really successful human beings had decided to delegate everything that another person could do, to simply focus on the few things that are their select zone of genius. And I started, and I've taken this to a far extreme, and I actually have much further that I get to go, but I'm finding it really juicy that the second I know how I could release a task or work, and I'm a huge control freak historically, that's why this is relevant. It feels like I now am committed to giving that away. So like right now, the things that are mine are like direct coaching, creating collaborations like this, creating content, and almost everything else can be delegated. And frankly, so could actually some of those things I just named, but I enjoy those things. and it's been fascinating to watch as I don't even cook. I haven't since I got to Belmar, but for 4 years, I realized I eat organic paleo for the most part. I don't have time to cook delicious stuff. And I like posted on Facebook, does anyone know someone who would come over and cook organic food? And it saved money. It saved money and the food was better. So it's like just an invitation to get creative about, if you were really committed to like your soul's genius, what would you be willing to release or reshape in some form so your zesty soul can just be focused on what only you can bring anyway.
Beautiful. Yes. Yes. And we're out of time. And I'm like just looking at the clock, like, how did that happen? Because it went so fast.
It did.
And I'm committed to respecting everyone's time. So I just gosh, I feel like there's so much more. Like,
I
just,
know.
like, you know, this is so much fun, and you're amazing, and everything that you presence and bring is empowering and powerful and really makes me think. And I just love that. I love, you know, love you, Anastasia. I love what you're about. You're such an amazing leader in this field, and so grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much for opening this conversation, even the way that you invited me. And I'm like, wow, there's some things to think about for today.
Yeah, always.
Yes. Yes.
You do have a gift for everyone. It's 25 joy generators and 3 ways to powerfully up-level your joy on the path to love. Tell us about that.
Yes. So it's just a simple book that I created on a workshop this is back to the conversation, how do we become our own beloved? And something that I saw in my own journey to love, and I see a lot, is that we're waiting for the arrival of the partner or the business to feel and do the following, like to feel happy, or in my case, to go island camping. So this is really an invitation for your viewers to, number one, unhook from what is their covert agenda around love? Like, what are they not letting themselves feel, create, or experience until love arrives or until they're successful? And how can they give that to themselves now, powerfully, in a devotional way, using joy, so that they are vibrationally aligned with the beloved who can meet them at that super high self-responsible place. So it's really an opportunity to unhook from their covert agenda, feel amazing, and to like just energetically prepare in all the ways that matter for someone to meet them where it counts.
Beautiful. Ah, thank you so much. This was wonderful. Just lights my heart up. And I know so many people are going to get so much value from this incredible sharing. So thank you so much, Anastasia. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Rochelle.
My pleasure. And to everyone watching and listening, be sure to grab Anastasia's gift. Have a beautiful day or evening. Thank you for tuning in, and namaste.